Find myself in a reflective place today, returning to the beginning, to the quiet, hidden questions, and almost hidden reasons I entered into the work of therapy in the first place. You know, at its heart, therapy is an act of pouring out. It's a deliberate choice to create room for another person's story, pain, confusion, and hope. It's a sacred place, a sacred practice of presence, and usually a therapist sits across from another human being and says, in 1,000 quiet ways, you don't have to carry this moment alone. Maybe the reason this work has always felt so meaningful is because I know what it's like to sit on the other side of the chair. I was once the client, the anxious, uncertain young person trying to understand the weight I carried, or even the silent weight I carried. I knew what it felt like to walk into a room feeling fragmented and to leave feeling a little more whole because my therapist was willing to sit with me. And therapy became a place where I was not rushed towards solutions. I was just seen, and being seen changed me. I remember my first day of grad school. The warm Los Angeles air on a hot summer August day is the day I walked into Cal State Northridge. There was this excitement, hope, and sense of something beginning. My life at the time looked very different from what I imagined it would look like in my early 20s. At 22 years old, I was working as a barista at my favorite church coffee shop, making about a whopping $10 an hour and living with my parents. I had a bachelor's degree, but I still felt lost. And around me, friends were traveling through Europe, tasting homemade pasta in Italy, exploring the world, and beginning adventures that seemed so beyond my reach. I found myself wondering if I had made the right choices. Was I making the right decision by choosing to become a therapist? But there was one thing I knew I loved. I loved scripture, the Bible, and I love therapy. And my own journey into therapy began when I was 18, almost 19 years old. I entered that process as a scared kid who was carrying burdens I didn't even understand. Generational trauma, anxiety, depression, and slowly over time, I began to name things that quietly shaped my character and my demeanor. An uncontrollable worry, depression, insecurity, and a deep struggle with my own sense of worth. And each week I would enter into my therapist's dusty room and sit with my therapist, and I can still remember the feeling of that space, the smell of the room, the quietness, and most importantly, my therapist's presence. For 1 hour each week, I was allowed to be completely human. I could show up broken, confused, lonely, and uncertain, and she didn't rush me. She didn't try to fix me. She was just simply holding space for me with compassion and consistency, and this presence planted a seed. It was in that moment that I began to understand the kind of work I wanted to spend my life doing. Becoming a therapist is not a path chosen for comfort, for fame, or for financial reward. I don't think anyone enters this profession expecting it to be an easy road. I live in Los Angeles, and in the state of California, becoming a licensed clinical social worker, I got my master's degree in social work. This requires years of education, supervision, and sacrifice. And the process involves not only graduate school, but clinical training, thousands of supervised hours, and years of learning how to responsibly hold the stories of others. And this journey requires patience. It requires a lot of humility. It requires a willingness to continue growing long after your time in the classroom ends. And for many years, I lived inside that process. And those years happened during the one of many turbulent seasons in modern history. I graduated from graduate school through Zoom during the height of COVID-19. I witnessed the emergence of ChatGPT a year after I graduated in 2022, and the explosive growth of TikTok in that same year, dramatic shifts in the American culture and politics, and increasing difficulty in building a life as expensive as California. and the world continues to accelerate. And some way along the way, I began to chase the ease. The constant movement of our culture slowly trained me to look outward, to being productive, to achieving more, to comfort and progress, rather than the inward knowing of the deeper work of becoming. Essentially, what happened is I lost touch with the younger version of myself, that 18-year-old who walked into therapy desperate for transformation. And it was only through seasons of difficulty that I began to remember my grandma moving in and out of the hospital, my father facing significant health diagnoses, and as I carried the early responsibility of this year of building my own private practice, I began to recognize something I had forgotten. Struggle sometimes is a way to bring us closer to intimacy, both with God and with ourselves. And the difficulties we often try to escape can be the very places where we encounter deeper relationships, greater compassion, and a more honest understanding of ourselves. One of the books I'm reading right now is called Water from a Deep Well by Dr. Gerald Sittser. And in that book, he writes, "The goal of life in this world is not ease, prosperity, and success, but intimacy with God and the maturity of our character." Those words have stayed with me in the weeks after I've read them. And for a long time, I believed the goal was forward movement, more success, more stability, more comfort. But somewhere in the pursuit of those things, I began to lose sight of the deeper calling beneath them. The goal was never to simply build a successful life. I'm putting my hands up for air quotes. The goal was to become the kind of person who could faithfully serve others. And I just want to reflect on formation right now. Running a therapy practice in a digital age has revealed how easily external noise can shape my interior life. Our world constantly competes for attention, offering endless opportunities for distraction while quietly eroding our ability to be present. And as a therapist, presence is not just a skill that you need in the room, it's the very foundation of how we interact with who we talk to and who we meet with, and to truly sit with another person, to understand their pain and to offer genuine compassion requires a life that has cultivated depth. It requires learning how to be still enough to notice what is happening beneath the surface. One of my favorite books that I reread every year is David Brooks's book, How to Know a Person, and it speaks to the importance of truly seeing others and allowing ourselves to be seen. And this kind of deep attention feels increasingly rare in a world built around quick interactions and endless scrolling. Yet this ability to recognize the humanity of another person is at the center of a meaningful connection. And the work of becoming a therapist, a licensed clinician, to become excellent in this work is also the work of becoming a listening person. Dallas Willard in Renovation of the Heart describes spiritual maturity as an intentional process of inner transformation. Change doesn't happen accidentally. The heart must be formed through deliberate practices, through surrender, through choosing depth over distraction. And deep work often echoes a similar truth that meaningful growth requires focused attention. We can't become people of depth without surrendering all of the noise that is around us. And so all that to say, to return to a calling, for me to return to my calling, I had to return to the quiet places of formation. And I have to learn again how to listen, how to be present, how to cultivate the inner life from true service. And it seems like I thought I was there, but the more that I begin to excavate just the inner depths of my heart, I realize that there's more room to grow. There's always more room to learn and grow. And the therapist I want to become can't be built on external achievement or being so focused on business that I lose sight of the craft. And the work I offer others has to come from a place that has itself been shaped, challenged, and transformed. And that comes from who I'm becoming as a person. And the dusty therapy room where I used to sit as a scared teenager is not just a place where I want to receive help. It's a place where I learned what it means to be a broken human who was also deserved to be seen. And now years later, it is the kind of space where I hope to offer others that in our brokenness, we are still accepted. So that's just a quick reflection of where I'm at in my therapy journey, and hope to see you next week.